Ronald Reagan once talked about abolishing the Department of Education. That was a good idea. Education's a local responsibility. We don't gain by shipping money from South Carolina to Washington so that Washington can scarf off a piece and send it back. Federal spending on education's gone up by billions and billions, as that chart shows. But the bottom of the graph, those lines are the reading, math, and science scores. They are flat. We've gotten nothing noticeable from all that increase in spending. Why? Where does the money go? Our next guest should have an idea. Sherry Street helped start the first significant voucher program in America in Milwaukee. Joel Klein, until last year, ran the New York City public school system. So either of you, where'd all that money go?
I'll tell you where it's gone. We've spent a ton of money hiring a whole lot more teachers and other people in the school system.
Well, that should be good. Oh,
and
more teachers.
No, it is, but we're not getting any return for it, right? And part of the reason is because we're running a state-run monopoly and not giving people real choices in this matter. Second thing we paid a ton for is seniority. Even though you have a workforce that's locked in, we keep paying them more each year. And that's not working for us. The other thing we pay for is credentials. And Bill Gates and others have done studies on this showing that there's no value for the credentials. So we have a very, if you will, worker-friendly environment. We just don't have a student-friendly environment. And whether we spend a lot of money or we don't spend a lot of money, if we don't spend it intelligently, we're not going to get the results.
Sherry?
I would agree with that. And I can tell you that in South Carolina, children, it's the per pupil funding for students is around $12,000 on average. But
and let's just stop and do the math there. $12,000 per student, and South Carolina is not the richest state.
Not the wealthiest, not
per
the biggest.
classroom, that's more than $200,000. Think what you could do. $200,000 per classroom. You could hire 3 great teachers, right? But that's what they spend, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
And that would be great if that came to the classroom. But what we found is only about 43.5 cents goes to instruction. The rest of the money goes to administration. In some,
well, you need some administration.
You do need some administration, but with only 43.5 cents going per dollar per pupil to the classroom, I don't think that's quite fair. So,
now this General Accounting Office report just said there are 82 duplicative programs to improve teacher quality. I mean, there's the Teachers for a Competitive Tomorrow, Teacher Quality Partnership Grants, Improving Teacher Quality State Grants, and on for 79 more. I would think if you could fire a bad teacher, that would improve quality just by itself.
I think you're right. When I saw that report, John, I said, boy, they must have had you in mind when they did it. But when you give people little programs to run, inevitably, that's what they're going to do. And there's zero accountability. Whether they're good programs, some of these programs may be good. But whether they're good or bad or not, who knows? And each year they get reauthorized.
Because it's a government monopoly. And I just love hearing you use that word. Because when I first interviewed you years ago, and I did a show called Stupid in America, I interviewed the head of the union that you had to negotiate with. And I said, well, it's a government monopoly. It doesn't, they never get better. And she said, people who use words like that don't like children.
No,
and now you're using it. I like it.
John,
it is a monopoly.
It is, of course. It's a monopoly in the classic sense, right? Whether you do a good job or a bad job, you get the same number of kids each year. I mean, what Bayo and these organizations are doing is trying to say, wait a second. How about you earn the right to educate my child? Not just that you're there, but you earn it. And if you're not good, and there's a charter school next door or another program, they get the kid. Now, that's what a classic monopoly, in fact, in terms of government is. It means whatever happens, you're going to get the same number of kids next year. You know what that incentivizes? It doesn't incentivize innovation, doesn't incentivize accountability, doesn't incentivize good outcomes. What it does incentivize is people can stay their lifetime in a job without any consequences whatsoever, good, bad, or indifferent.
And what would change that is if the money were attached to the kid, and the parent might say, oh, this school is better. And that's what you introduced in Milwaukee. People say, Milwaukee scores aren't that much better in those voucher schools.
But what
a little better, but not a lot.
That's true. But what we have done is we've changed the dynamic of the power. Who is in charge of the power and the money? What we want to do is empower parents. They know better than any bureaucrat what's best for their children. And so when we give parents the power to vote with their feet, then our monopolies, as you mentioned, have to take notice because that's what they want to protect.
So why haven't we seen more impressive results? You don't have a critical mass to have a market, or?
Well,
I thought I thought that would be night and day.
I think there are a number of us who've been in this movement for a long time that thought that too. And I think that we do see improvement in academic scores in charter schools and other independent schools, and that will continue to increase.
And the public schools may have improved just to compete.
To compete some, but I think two points that are worth noting here. Milwaukee's a very small program. That's not to excuse it, and I think there were some errors. But look, nobody who's watching us doesn't insist on choice for his or her kids. Nobody says, well, whatever the neighborhood school, if it's crummy, I'll go there, it doesn't matter. People insist on choice. Why should the people who are the poorest and the most challenged get a one-and-done approach to public education? Right now in Harlem, if you have a kid going to kindergarten, you could send them to 20 different charter schools. And empowering parents has mattered. 2 independent studies by 2 different people who have looked at those kids who applied to the charter and got in, and those who applied to the charter and didn't get in. And time and again, they're showing the ones who went to the charters are getting better and better results. Look, there's no silver bullet. There's going to be no simple formula. But you make a bet on empowering the consumer in virtually everything. People who are watching tonight chose to watch. They had lots of options. One and done doesn't work, and we surely shouldn't think it's going to work for our neediest, most challenged, poorest kids in America.